Welcome to another edition of the Hawk Off the Press podcast. I'm your host, Gazette Hawkeyes reporter, John Steppe. I'm excited to welcome back to the podcast Swarm founder and CEO, Brad Heinrichs. Brad, thanks for joining me.
Hey, good to be here, John.
So now, let's see if I'm doing my math right. You're almost 3 years into Swarm.
We're getting close. Yeah, it's May would be the third year. Yeah.
So overall, kind of where do things stand? Is it kind of where you'd like things to be? Kind of what's, I guess, the state of Swarm as we speak in
the
February
State of the Union?
Yes.
Yeah.
State of the collective.
There it is. It's a real interesting time because this house settlement concept is looming out there, but we don't really have full direction yet. And so part of the intricacies of what's going on, say with football, which I think you cover, is that you have guys coming into the portal that may, if the house settlement is approved, and I think we find out the first week of April or something like that, April 7th maybe. If the house settlement is approved, then starting July 1. These kids can be paid out of the athletic department budget. And so you have Swarm paying for the first 6 months. Then you have the athletic department paying for the next 6 months. And it could be that Swarm is also paying for the next 6 months, for the final 6 months as well, but just on top of what is coming out of the athletic department budget. And so you got quite a few moving pieces. And when we were looking at portal players, it became a lot more complex of a conversation this year than in previous years, because you may have two separate payers. Whereas before, last year, for example, I can do the negotiating. I'm the one that's doing I'm paying them, and that was that. And so I didn't have to involve as many other outside folks, versus this time you have, there's the number, and then there's what's Swarm going to pay, what's revenue sharing going to pay, what can you afford, what can we afford, and trying to figure out, and then of course the agents are a lot of fun, in all that process. But of course they want it all up front on day one, right? Which isn't going to happen. But getting back to your original question, the Swarm has been really successful in helping our athletics programs succeed. I think that while we've helped, what people on the outside see is when we bring in a transfer, for example, and they go, "Oh, that's a big Swarm victory." But what they don't understand are all the victories of that we've had keeping players on campus. I mean, if you look at football, which I think again is your focus here, you look at football and our defections versus the other top 25 programs in the country pale in comparison. We don't have as many people leave, and the people that we do have leave, a lot of times, I would consider to be cleansing the program as opposed to having a defection that hurts. And so we've been very successful in helping to retain players, and that's all due in part because of the donations of Hawkeye fans and local businesses that have supported us. And so I think that competitively or comparatively with other collectives, I think we're doing quite well. Most collectives, I shouldn't say most. Some collectives have not done a very good job honoring contracts. I can say that we have never once not honored a contract. I think that was double negatives. That's probably not best grammar there, but we have honored all of our contracts and paid in full, as we should, whereas other collectives across the country that I know about have not. And so, a lot to be proud of, and the future is a bit uncertain. It's cloudy. So we'll see. Hopefully in the next few months, we'll get a little bit more clarity as to where the swarm fits into the ongoing world of collegiate athletics.
With the honoring every contract, do you use that as you're having your many interesting interactions with agents? Do you use that as a selling point in terms of, hey, look, this place might only give you 30% of what they're telling you. We're giving you 100.
Absolutely. And we've actually developed a reputation of being one of the above board collectives that does what they say, puts everything in writing. There are collectives out there that don't even put contracts in writing, and they'll have somebody say, hey, we're going to give you X thousands of dollars a year, and the kid says okay, and then they say, what about a contract? Oh, we'll take care of that later. And then the contract never happens, and then the kid gets paid initially a little bit, then he throws an interception and the money dries up, or gets hurt and he doesn't get paid, and then there's no contract, so there's nothing to go and enforce. So it's so yeah, I think that the collegiate, all the agents out there understand that if their kid comes to Iowa, they're going to be taken care of, and what is negotiated is going to be acted upon and executed. So yeah, I think that's been a benefit to us.
How do you contractually, because like as you were mentioning before, when you knew you were covering the full year, I imagine that makes it a little easier in terms of what those contracts are going to look like. How do you balance that?
Yeah, it's really interesting because the contracts now, you have to, let's say that you decide, you come to an agreement on a player. Let's say, I'll just make a round number. It's $100,000, let's say, for the year. And you have to determine who is going to pay what and when, right? And so is the swarm going to pay half? Is it going to pay 25%? And then how much is going to happen when? So for example, I wouldn't want to give all of our payments to the kid before the spring portal opens, right? How stupid do I look if I give the kid all this money? He goes through spring practice and then he enters the portal and says, hey, thanks for playing. Thanks for coming. But I really appreciate the cash, swarm. And they're off to wherever they're off to, right? And they never played a snap for us. And we paid them a bunch of money for spring practice. So there's that. And then also, like the NIL, our contracts, for example, don't have performance metrics in them, but revenue sharing contracts can. And so you can imagine, and so the way the contracts work now is you'll have the swarm piece, the revenue sharing piece, and then a lot of times you'll have a just in case thing, that just in case the settlement doesn't go through and it blows up, for example. A lot of times the agents want the swarm to be on the hook for everything, no matter what. And so then you have that kind of interesting language that says, hey, if they can't pay, then we got to pay. So you can see that there's complexities now that didn't exist before, and it makes the negotiation process a lot more difficult, and a lot more people involved. Whereas before it was just, mainly me. So that's made it interesting, challenging.
I assume then you kind of, at least through April, you just proceed as if it's not going to happen. And then if you all of a sudden are financially not on the hook for as much as you thought, that's a pleasant change.
Yeah, a little bit. But I mean, we know that we're going to be on the hook, even if the April 7th verdict is exactly like some people expect it to be and the House settlement is approved. All right. We're still going to be on the hook until June 30th, no matter what. They won't be able to, revenue sharing won't start until July 1. So we are going to be on the hook for the first 6 months of 2025, regardless. So we're planning for that. If, however, we are we find out in April that the settlement did not go through, the judge says, this is garbage. You guys got to operate the way you're currently operating, or you got to go back to the drawing board and come up with something different. which basically means 2025 is just like 2024. Well, let's just say my fundraising, I'm going to put on that fundraising hat real tight, and we're going to have to go and raise some serious capital to pay for some of these kids that are expecting a certain amount, whether it's coming from the swarm or coming from revenue sharing. They don't care. Their bank account doesn't care where it comes from. Their agent doesn't care where it comes from. We've got to make it happen. So.
And then, in past times that we've talked, I've asked you, okay, what are the membership numbers looking like? Where do you want it to be?
Yeah, we're still in the 3,000 range. I really wish it was around 10,000. That's been the number that I've wanted to get to. We've got a good group of strong donors. We've got a large contingent of our fan base is, faithfully, religiously giving us $20 a month. And we appreciate those people as well, because that provides the foundation for everything. And there's always a little churn. There's some people that, we miss a 3-pointer to win the game last night, and someone says, I'm done giving you money until something happens. And then there'll be somebody else that joins at the same time. And so there's a little bit of churn there, but our membership numbers are not what I'd like them to be, but at the same time, if I was to look across the country and look at other collectives and their membership numbers, we're not, really on the super low end either. So, I just expected more Hawkeye fans to want to get involved in this than have so far.
Looking back to January, you get a quarterback who's a former Walter Payton Award winner. Going back to last March, April, somewhere around there, you get a very accomplished women's basketball player from a respectable Big East school.
Yeah.
Going back to 2022, is this what you were hoping that Swarm would be able to do?
Absolutely. I wanted to positively impact Iowa athletics, and I also wanted to positively impact the community. I think that Swarm has accomplished both. You mentioned Lucy Olson, and I don't know that anybody was smiling bigger than I was after she almost went for 30 points in front of Caitlin Clark, and we beat USC. How cool was that? I'm just sitting there kind of going, this is what we were hoping for. And I know she's been a great addition to the women's roster, and I'm sure they are super happy to have her around. And I think she's kind of bridging the gap for Iowa women's basketball, because I know they've got some big recruits coming in. Football, same thing. I mean, I being able to retain some of the players that came back this last year, bringing in a quarterback like Mark Gronowski, he's going to be awesome. Everybody's super excited about him. Those kinds of things, are what, Hawkeye fans get excited about, what I get excited about as a fan. And then, we're working for like 50 something charities across the state, and these kids are doing great things for them. And the charities really appreciate it. And the kids that are involved, that are impacted by these charities, really appreciate it. And so I feel like we're doing a lot of good things, a lot of positive things in Iowa. So, it's that's the gratifying part of it. That and for me personally, getting to work with these coaches who are all really good people. Even a lot of times people see coaches mad at referees or officials, and they think, well, that guy must be a jerk. Man, no, they're just in the heat of competition. I mean, they're really cool. Almost every coach that I dealt with at Iowa has been a really, really solid person. And so that's been fun.
The question / comment I'm sure you've gotten plenty of times since early January in terms of, adding Mark, paying a quarterback who needs a surgery, kind of what level of due diligence do you, I'm assuming you don't sign a guy without doing your homework.
Yeah, this wasn't one of those where you sign the guy and then he's on his way back to South Dakota and he says, "Oh, by the way, I've got surgery scheduled for Monday." That's not how it went down. Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of people like to make up stories about that, but no, this was, I got to be careful what I say just for HIPAA reasons, but this was a pretty routine surgery that could have even just been ignored. This was more of a comfort type thing for him to try to be 100% as opposed to 90+%, and not something that the medical staff was concerned about. Since the surgery, I think the surgery was from what I can understand great, and he's ahead of schedule, and there's nothing that Hawkeye fans really need to be concerned about from a medical standpoint. I know that we're all a little jaded about quarterbacks and injuries, so I can appreciate. I'm a Hawkeye fan too, so I live and die with every Saturday. So I understand the hesitation and concern of Hawkeye fans, but I really believe that the injury piece is not going to be relevant come this fall, and not something that is going to impact his play.
Speaking of portal, it's not all that far away in terms of basketball portal season, as hard as that is to believe as we're talking in February. But do you feel like right now Swarm is at a spot where you could get another, I don't want to say another Lucy Olson because that's a high bar there.
It is.
But where there's a potential to land some impactful recruits?
Well, I think Fran's already gotten a kid from Miami. That's, I think, going to be impactful. This high school kid out of Tampa, in my backyard, basically, is one of the most highly rated recruits Iowa basketball's ever had. And so he should be pretty good. But in terms of transfers, the interesting thing about this next transfer window, of course, is how much is Swarm going to be involved? Is it going to be just, hey, you're going to get this out of revenue sharing, or is Swarm going to help supplement whatever the revenue sharing is going to be for men's basketball? I mean, that's going to be a real interesting dynamic as we move forward, and I'll work with Fran and his staff, depending upon kind of how they see the roster playing out with their current rev share, and then what the market's going to be. It's really interesting too, John, the market for men's basketball players versus women's. There's not a lot of senior top flight men's basketball players moving around like they are maybe some of the women, where like a Lucy Olson was like third in scoring and she has 1 year left. Okay. You're not going to probably find somebody like that in the men's category. And I think a lot of it has to do with those guys that are that good are going to the NBA and getting really paid, right? Well, the WNBA doesn't pay much compared to what they can make in NIL. And what's Caitlin Clark making this year? She's like 75,000 or something. I don't know what it is.
Some unbelievably low number.
She's getting paid less than she's worth. I think we can all agree to that. But the women's basketball players in college can make more than that. So that's bizarre. But with college football or college basketball, that's not the same. With men's college basketball, that's not the case. They can go to the NBA and make multiples of what they can make with NIL. So do I think that it's possible to land an impactful transfer? Absolutely. Will we be helpful in that pursuit? Should Fran and his staff ask us? Absolutely. We'll do everything we can to help them.
And then Swarm has obviously been very creative in terms of different ways of creating revenue: beer, vodka, water, travel. I'm probably missing a couple.
Yeah.
Any kind of new areas that you're getting into or exploring ahead of 2025, 26?
Not particularly. No, we're hoping that the Swarm water takes off a little bit more. I think it's only being sold in specific places in Des Moines, like Quick Trips or something at this point, and maybe some grocery stores. But hoping that kind of spreads throughout the state. But no, we're not really. I don't have. I get approached. I got approached yesterday about a THC type beverage. I don't even know what that is, but someone wants to potentially have a Swarm THC beverage. I'll take the phone call, but I'm not sure where that'll go. So yes, I get approached all the time about, hey, this great idea, but it's unlikely that we're going to be rolling out anything grandiose or new, like beer or vodka or something like that.
And now that we're getting close to this 3-year mark, anything that's kind of really surprised you over these last 3 years?
Yeah, what surprises me a little bit is how critical some people can be about, they'll say that we're not transparent enough. And I'm like, I don't know how much more transparent I can be without violating a contract. Contract says I can't tell you how much we're paying Mark Gronowski, but I'm still going to get, chastised for not telling everybody how much somebody else is going to be making. So that's been somewhat surprising. The other thing that's been surprising is, and I'm saying, I'm talking about I think you kind of meant negative surprises. The other negative surprise might just be that more people haven't jumped on board with this, because this is really, I would say, the Hawkeye fans' first biggest chance to impact winning. Their donations before might provide a nicer stadium or a more luxurious locker room, but nothing attracts a player like cash. And this is a Hawkeye fan's chance to help bring in the best players in the country. And I was expecting more people to want to jump at that. But that's okay. It's everybody has their own discretionary income. But there've been lots of positive surprises, John. I mean, I had no idea that our coaching staff could be, that this group of people could be such great people that I would want to actually hang out with and just call just to talk. The kids that these coaches bring in are remarkable. They all tend to be extremely respectful, gracious, thankful, just really, really good kids. Humble. Can't say enough good things about the kids. I can't say enough bad things about sports agents at this point. The next one that tells me the truth might be the first one. I think they're kind of ruining things for a lot of these kids. They're taking 10, 20% off the top, and they're not adding value. They're just taking money from these kids. And so I really have been disappointed in that aspect of this. But all told, it's been quite a ride.
With the agents, I assume you're dealing with a lot of price inflation where they're saying that the market for such and such player is X when it might really be a much smaller Y.
Oh, for sure. Oh yeah. They'll tell me, so and so would pay this guy 5 times what you're paying him. You're getting this hometown discounts. Oh, you're getting I can't believe that I'm allowing my player to sign this contract for this amount when he can be making multiples somewhere else, and this is like stealing. And it's like, I'm having to hear all that all the time. It gets pretty old. When fact of the matter is, the guy's lying. It's just it's a daily occurrence that I'm hearing lies, and that's not the way I like to do business, or the people that I like to do business with. The problem is that I don't have a choice. In my real job, John, I get to choose who I work with and have as clients. In this case, I'm stuck with whatever agent represents a player. So unfortunately, I have to work with some people that I probably wouldn't choose to in the real world.
Has it been difficult in terms of, you still have a very much full-time real world job that pays for you to be able to do this?
That's right.
Has it been a tough balance there over the last 3 years?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, trying to balance being accessible to Hawkeye fans, to media, to the staff, to the players, all while trying to run a national consulting firm is it's difficult. But and I don't take any, as we've talked about, I don't take any money from the Swarm or whatever for doing this. But I was thinking this morning, there's levels to this. People will say, oh, Brad's great because he doesn't take a salary. Then I saw the Texas Tech head of their collective just sold his company for $4 billion. I'm pretty sure that Texas Tech is benefiting more from their collective guy than I was. Let's put it that way. So like I said, there's levels to this. And it was no surprise to me to learn this when I'm looking at, when we're going through the portal and I'm seeing the numbers that Texas Tech has thrown out there for some of these guys. And I'm like, they're paying that much for that guy? You've got to be kidding me. Then I find out their collective guy's worth $4 billion. Who cares? When you're worth $4 billion, I mean, it's, that's chump change, so it's a difficult balance, to get back to your question. Difficult balance, but it's fun. And I've always said busy people accomplish more. So, I've had a good time with it. And I've got Jane Oswald working with me, and she's tremendous. She handles a lot of the heavy lifting, and I couldn't do without her.
Anything you wish you would have done differently?
There's always things I wish I would have done differently. There's always some small regrets here and there. Obviously I wish that I wouldn't have done a call to arms 30 minutes before on social media, 30 minutes before another quarterback announced he's not coming to Iowa. That made me look pretty silly. My timing there was terrible. What else would I want to do differently? I mean, like I said, there's little things here and there, but nothing major. Nothing. I like the way we've structured things. I always wonder whether or not spending money on marketing would have been a good idea to get more people. The problem is that it's not my money that's doing it generally. It's donors' money that I'm spending. And I want as much of the donor money to go into the kids as possible. So that's always that's a really difficult one, right? What kind of return on investment do you get from marketing? So I've questioned whether I've handled that correctly. Maybe I should have spent more money on that, and maybe we would be better off if I would have. But I don't know that we'll ever know. There are things that worked out differently than I wish. I mean, I wish that Cade McNamara would have won the Heisman Trophy. I wish Caden Proctor would have stuck around. There are things that I really wish would have happened that didn't. But I can't control those things. And all I can really control is what I can do to help the wishes of the football program and the basketball program. And I think generally we've been able to really provide assistance and support.
And then lastly, we talked about this a little bit before, but what are you most proud of from this so far?
Yeah, I'd say most thing I'm most proud about is that one, we're honoring our contracts. Two, I think that we have positively impacted each of the programs, and not just the three what I'm considering to be the revenue type programs, but all programs on campus, even the non-revenue sports. We've been able to provide a platform for some of them to get assistance, and then just the stuff that we've been able to do in the community. And I think that we've helped kids get mature and become better people. I'm having dinner next Monday night with Nick Jackson in Florida, and he's graduated and preparing for the draft and all of those things. And in talking with him last time I was with him, he said some things that made me feel pretty good. Telling me that all of the charity events that he attended really shaped him, and his views of Iowa City and the University of Iowa have been positively affected by his work with the Swarm, and that kind of stuff is meaningful, and hopefully it'll turn into donations someday. So hopefully it'll come back around.
And then kind of anything else that'd be important for fans listening to this to know, kind of as we're at this point of Swarm?
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't contributed or helped us, really wish you would consider it. You can go to iowaswarm.com and make a donation, or you can contact either Jane or myself. I think that there's still a huge opportunity for Hawkeye fans to impact winning, and there's no time like the present to support us. What the future holds, nobody knows, but I can assure you that any donations or contributions that you provide will be put to good use and go and support the Hawkeye athletes. But one of the other things I should have mentioned that I'm pretty proud of, John, is our expense ratio. Only about 10% of the monies that are donated go towards paying for expenses. The rest are actually going to the athletes, and not many other collectives across the country can boast that kind of percentage. A lot more is going to payroll and other expenses. We don't have that. So you can feel, Hawkeye fans can feel like when they donate, it's actually passing through to really help support our programs and help us compete on the field and on the court.
Well, Brad, thanks for joining me.
John, it was great. Thanks so much for having me, and stay cool. Stay warm up there. It sounds like it's kind of brutal in Iowa City right now.
Yes, and enjoy your warm weather down in Florida. And thanks to our listeners for tuning into another episode. Until next time, we will talk Hawks later.